over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled GOP, How Dare You Tell the Truth? And it's about a series of articles that have been published in both the Washington Post and the New York Times over the last 3 weeks, tracking down or showing how researchers who are looking into lies and disinformation are now themselves being, in the crosshairs. They are the targets of lawsuits and congressional action designed to basically intimidate them and shut them up. I start out with the story of Starbird, Kate Starbird, who is a researcher at the University of Washington on disinformation. And she's mentioned in both articles. And, she thought she was doing the right thing, tracking down the source of deadly lies that killed 500,000 Americans, the COVID lies, and also almost led to the overthrow of the U.S. government, January 6th, and all the stuff around that. Where did these lies come from, she wanted to know. And she's not alone in this. There's a whole bunch of researchers. She was the one that was profiled in the Washington Post. But little did she realize when she started this research into something that, makes perfectly reasonable sense, that the very people whose behavior she was studying would use the power of government to try to destroy her work, stop her funding, and even try to destroy her personal life and her reputation. And not just hers. I mean, right across the board. What we see now is there are lawsuits coming out of a couple of right-wing groups affiliated with the Trump administration. We're seeing Jim Jordan, who is the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, has subpoenaed a number of these groups. He's subpoenaing reporters. He's subpoenaing people who are involved in research into disinformation, lies, misinformation. And of course, you get a subpoena from him, and in many cases he's subpoenaing, quote, all emails, correspondence, tweets, social media, everything going back to 2015. Now just imagine, you get a thing, you're sitting at home and a sheriff comes up and says, here, you've been subpoenaed. And the subpoena says that you've got to turn over to Jim Jordan's committee every email that might even peripherally touch upon any of these topics or any correspondence with other people who are investigating these topics for the last 2015, 8 years? Could you even do that? And Jim Jordan is threatening to put people in jail, in prison, if they refuse to, if they don't comply rapidly enough. And the effect of this has been to completely intimidate people. I mean, they're going after interns, they're going after students who are working on these projects, they're obviously going after professors. Why are they doing this? Well, it's for a very obvious reason in my mind. The Republican Party used to call themselves the Party of Ideas. Remember this back in the 80s? If you're old enough, you remember this, the Reagan administration. We're the party of new ideas. We've got some great new ideas. Unions are actually they're driving down wages on workers, the Republicans said. I mean, it was a lie, but people bought it. Union bosses are corrupt and they're enriching themselves. Well, that's a lie. Union bosses are paid a salary. It's not like they're CEOs who make money if the stock goes up, right? These were just lies. Voter fraud is caused by black people in the cities, and we got to crack down on those cities in order to stop. Another lie, a demonstrable lie. Climate change is not caused by fossil fuels. It's a natural, it's sunspots and stuff. Another lie. I mean, they're still promulgating these lies, right? Many of them go back to the 80s and Paul Ryan and his new ideas. But, public school teachers are part of a union-based communist conspiracy. Gays, lesbians, and trans people want to convert your kids. Teaching American history injures white children. Cutting taxes on billionaires helps average people. These are all lies. These are Republican lies. COVID is like the flu and the vaccine is dangerous. Expanding Medicare or regulating big pharma will break our healthcare system. Russia didn't help Trump. The media has a liberal bias. Public schools have failed. Abortions and birth control cause cancer, infertility, and regret. January 6th wasn't a traitorous coup attempt. This is the universe of Republican lies, and there's probably others that I've missed here, and feel free to call me. In fact, I'll go in and edit my article and add them in. But these are the big ones, in my opinion. The big, 10 or 15 Republican lies. And now we've got some researchers, credible university groups and the German Marshall Fund and the University of Washington and others who are looking into where did these lies come from and how do they get spread. And Jim Jordan is doing everything he can to stop that research. And he's being effective. He's being successful. The New York Times had one professor say, I won't even talk to you on the record. I'm afraid for my family. People have been doxxed. They've been swatted. They've been outed. They've been harassed. Kate Starbird deleted her Twitter account, which had 50,000 followers, because she was, being stalked, cyber stalked. This is, well, as William Shearer said, the historian who lived his first few years, or not his first few years, he lived in Germany through the first few years of the Hitler regime, and then left Germany and went on to write The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, which is, the seminal narrative of history of the Third Reich. He wrote, in Nazi parlance, educated meant intimidated, to a point where all would accept docilely the Nazi dictatorship and its barbarism. Well, the MAGA wing of the Republican Party is devoted to education in this context. And the reason that they can pull it off with Jim Jordan doing this is because the Article 6 of the Constitution says that he can't be held to account. This was the exact same, it says, members of Congress shall in all cases except treason, felony, and breach of the peace be privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective houses, and they shall not be questioned in any other place. In other words, Jim Jordan can do anything he wants, and nobody can stop him. He has immunity. This was the exact same immunity that was used in the 1950s by Senator McCarthy. Drunken Senator McCarthy, we should have had. Joe, good old, tail gunner Joe, they called him, because he pretended to be this was his campaign thing, taking pictures in the gunning tail of I think it was a B-25. So, they can't do anything. People can't stop them. They can't stop him. As the Washington Post reported earlier this month, quote, the pressure has forced some researchers to change their approach or step back, even as disinformation is rising ahead of the 2024 election. The deluge of bad information about disinformation researchers' work has also led to a torrent of digital harassment, threats, and smears. Kate Starbird said, the political part is intimidating to have people with a lot of power in this world making false claims, false accusations about our work. So where did this come from? Where did this idea come from? Well, this is Steve Bannon's strategy. All these lies that I'm citing here, that they're trying to stop anybody from outing them. Steve Bannon told reporter Michael Lewis, the Democrats don't matter. The real opposition is the media, and the way to deal with them is to flood the zone with the S word. I mean, he actually said the word, you know what I'm talking about. Bannon later added, this is not about persuasion, this is about disorientation. And as the New York Times noted, researchers face mounting legal costs and questions from directors and donors about the risks raised by studying disinformation. Online attacks have also taken a toll on morale and in some cases scared away students. So here we have Jim Jordan, the guy who is deeply entangled with Trump's efforts to overthrow our form of government, but appears to have escaped any accountability with regard to that because of the timidity of Merrick Garland. And perhaps the corruption of Chris Wray, I don't know. But Jordan comes out and says, without a trace of irony or self-consciousness, he says, whether directly or indirectly, a government-approved or facilitated censorship regime is a grave threat to the First Amendment and American civil liberties. Yeah, Jim, tell us all about it. This government-run facilitated censorship program that is now coming out of the House Judiciary Committee, and other sources as well. There's other groups as well that are launching lawsuits. This is crazy.